It's How to Kill a Piano, episode 18. I'm George Tate. Thanks for being here. Guess what? No, you didn't guess. You just were like, okay, he's going to tell us anyway. And you're right, I am. We now have a merch store officially. So you can now purchase How to Kill a Piano mugs, pillows, t-shirts, magnets, stickers. It's all there over at howtokillapiano.com. Just click the shop button either at the top or the bottom of the page and check out what we've got. If you don't want to pay for something, we are running a contest right now over on my Instagram. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, head there now to Think George Tate. That's Think T-H-I-N-K, George G-E-O-R-G-E, Tate T-A-I-T. And find my post. And at the time of this recording, it's the most recent post that explains what the rules of the contest are, and you can win an official How to Kill a Piano mug. Now, it's very simple. All you need to do is go there, like the post, follow me if you're not already, and tag a few of your friends. That's all you got to do. The more people you tag, the more entries you have to win the mug. I'll ship it anywhere in the world, and that mug will be yours. If you win. If a mug doesn't interest you, we're going to be giving away other things too. We'll do that over on our Facebook page, in addition to right through our blog on our website, howtokillapiano.com. So go over to Instagram, check that out. Today, we have a new chapter for you, and it's been a minute, but it's a longer chapter, so hopefully it doesn't disappoint. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing this with your friends. Thanks for listening. I've rambled enough. Let's get into Chapter 15. Chapter 15, Memories of a Blue Moon. When you're smaller, everything seems so much simpler. You'll notice I used the word smaller, not younger. I'm still relatively young. Age is tricky in that way. Charlie and the rest of the Athenians seem ageless, and yet some are younger, some are older, but they don't age like we do. Regardless of how we age, at one point all of us are smaller. No one comes into existence full size, and while some may get older, some remain young forever. But that's only because they check out before everyone else. The more simple something is, the more magical it can feel. Once you begin to grow up, something inside us begins to die. The only way to breathe life into ourselves is to impact what's around us in positive ways. At first, the Hazelton felt like magic. It was beautiful. Beautiful, horrifying magic. Then the reality of the Hazelton set in, and our life became complicated. The Hazelton was smarter than I originally conceived. After I took it for a swim, it developed an odd tone that constantly radiated off the soundboard even when untouched. It almost sounded like Beethoven. I underestimated its strength. I realized that if I was going to succeed in my quest to destroy my musical foe, I was going to need more than a book of chords and a handful of lessons. I needed more guidance. I had been putting in the work and playing the slow game. I learned the classics, but now I needed to learn more than the fundamentals. I needed to regroup so that I could plot an effective technique that would skin, gut, and finish off my musical foe so that Charlie and I could go back to the rest of our lives in peace. It didn't work, I exclaimed, as I barged into Sarah's house and down into the music room for that week's lesson. What didn't work? Sarah said, tossing Sticks one of the biscuits from the clear bowl on top of her piano. Slow down, start from the beginning, Tell me everything. I tried a few chords from that book you left me. I pulled Invisible Persuasions from my bag and handed it to Sarah. Upon seeing the book, her tone changed completely. Is Charlie not with you today? She inquired disappointingly, noticing his absence, while curiously taking the book from my hands. Charlie's fine. He's safe. I came alone today. I have a lot of questions. She studied the book carefully. Where did you find this? I thought you stuck it in my bag at my last lesson. It wasn't me. What a curious treasure you've found, George. Sarah slowly ran her fingers over the embossed R.I.C. of the author's name. It had been nearly rubbed away with time. She then traced the spine of the book with her fingertips, as if it was a treasured artifact. Sometimes, the Athenians have been known to make the right book appear for the right readers at the right time, Sarah said, struggling to get the words out, overcome with emotion. Well, I'm not sure I'm the right reader. It didn't help. I flooded Charlie's basement. You did what now? Sarah looked concerned. Don't worry, the books are fine. It seems I didn't do any damage to anything, including the Hazelton, which was the whole point. I thought you were training me to destroy it, and yet it's still standing there, as it has always been. They are clever little monsters, aren't they, George? Sarah sat me down on the opposite piano bench and scooted her bench closer to mine. Sometimes a book comes into our lives at the right time, but not only because of what's inside them, but because of what they represent and where they've come from. You can learn more from a book than what's etched into its pages. Wait, isn't this supposed to be where you tell me not to judge a book by its cover and encourage me to read it? Sure, if you'd like, though sometimes that's exactly what you shouldn't do. Do you know who wrote this one? I shook my head no, as Sarah opened the cover of the book and began to skim the pages with her right hand. Her left hand toyed on the lower register of the piano keys to unconsciously form a bass line. For a moment, everything in the room faded. The walls, the piano, the bench that I was sitting on. I felt my voice fade into the background, and Sarah's memories came rushing in, flooding the space. The book took center stage. I thought we lost you, Sarah said in a whisper to herself. The distorted sound of various groupings of notes began to fill the room. I could no longer see myself, but I felt myself inside Sarah's memory as it began to play. Charlie's voice cut through the blur of the surroundings, focusing the memory further. At this rate, we're never going to finish cracking the cryptogram. Maybe the tuning's too far off, Sarah suggested, as she found herself in the past sitting at a piano while Charlie stood next to her in the center of her Athenaeum. They were surrounded by volume after volume of information, and unfinished Invisible Perceptions laid open on the music stand in front of Sarah. The two of them had been working out how each variation of chords affected the world around them. There were 5 pianos encircling the two of them, and they discovered that not all pianos elicited the same response. A 6th piano, a baby grand, located at the eye of the storm, is where they positioned themselves. The hood extended open, exposing its insides. Sarah sat at the keys, and Charlie was tinkering in its belly with a tuning wrench, making small adjustments while Sarah's fingers hammered out melodies and chords into the out-of-tune strings. Of course. Go back to that A note in the upper registry, Charlie urged. Sarah singled out the problematic note and pressed down on the sustain pedal with her bare foot. Do you remember the day we met? She asked as she played the key, engaging the hammer inside the piano's belly to strike the set of 3 strings that Charlie was attempting to tune to the same tone. That was so very many lifetimes ago. I fear I've forgotten more experiences than I've been able to maintain. But that day, my dearest Sarah, meeting you, that's one meeting that I'll never forget. Sarah smiled, while Charlie continued. It was spring, April 29th. He twisted the tuning wrench a couple of turns. Now, can you play that middle C next? It was such a beautiful day, spending it with you on the island, Sarah remembered as her fingers danced down to the middle C and firmly pressed it down. Her toes continued to hold down the sustain pedal, making sure the strings rang their notes as long as they could. Charlie lifted the wrench from around the tuning peg that wound the A strings and repositioned it around one of the pegs of the 3 middle C strings. He carefully inserted soft dampening wedges between the other strings to isolate the problematic offender. I believe you were the one to suggest the spot. Charlie winked. Hit that key again. What? No, it was you who batted your eyelashes and flirted your way into my world, old man. Sarah struck the key a bit harder. Careful, you're still technically older than me. If I'm an old man, what does that make you? Charlie adjusted the tone of the string and then removed the wedges, freeing those around it to sing in unison on pitch. Watch it, Buster, she threatened, slanting her brown, gorgeous almond-shaped eyes with a grin. Buster, huh? Such sass. Here I thought I was watching it. Charlie couldn't take his eyes off of her as he manipulated the tuning wrench one more partial turn to the right. The pitch of the note began to bend upward to match in line with the other strings being struck under the hammer. That sounds better. Do me a favor and play that A key again. Sarah's fingers struck the key with considerable force. The hammer inside the belly of the beastie struck the strings with a loud bong as they melted together as one single perfect note. If I recall correctly, you were the one who was ready for adventure and insisted that I come along. Sarah, when you first walked into my world, I thought you were the perfect complement to the puzzle pieces that I had been working on piecing together for myself. You echoed the haunts inside my mind and played the strings of my heart with every little note that you've left me. Charlie, that first day you invited me into your spooky little house, I thought I finally found home. Sarah, you feel like home to me so much. So much so that I started to believe that I must have made you up in my head. Play that middle B note, if you please. Are you really going to quote Sylvia Plath at me? Would you prefer Mary Shelley? You know I'm going to have to tell Sylvia when we have cocktails this coming Tuesday that Charlie Safaric has been quoting Sylvia Plath's poetry out of a feminist magazine at me. Sarah tapped the B key on the piano while Charlie adjusted it in kind. That wasn't a direct quote exactly, but the essence was there. We both know feminism is the future. It's a wonder that we've gotten this far into civilization without them letting it catch on with more momentum. Besides, you were the one who quoted her at me first. Remember you clipped it out of those magazine pages of the Mademoiselle and left it for me as a note? How very serial killer of you. Well, maybe the essence of Mary Shelley and Sylvia Plath run through my veins. Sarah giggled and stuck out her tongue playfully. You know, the seer is going to be analyzing this snapshot of time with much confusion, rewinding and replaying, trying to make sense of us. Charlie joked. Oh, Charlie, Harold can look all that they wish. This time with you makes my heart happy. Sarah shot back, tossing a biscuit straight into his face playfully. You're a pain in the ass, Saraswathi. And I love all of you. Every bit. For always. Charlie lifted the tuning wrench from within the piano and pocketed it. You're such a charmer. Sarah quipped. You've always made it easy. Every second next to you, I can feel my heart match the beat of yours. Charlie slid onto the bench next to Sarah. You know, You tapped into worlds that I had been denying within myself. I didn't even realize I had been bagging away from life for so many centuries. An eternity is a long time to spend alone. Thanks for waking me up and showing me that there's always more. Do you think it's ready? Sarah pumped the pedals of the piano, and it began to purr again. Why don't you try a few of those chord combinations again? Suggested Charlie. There's countless chapters ahead of us to write, and I hope to pen libraries full of volumes that we'll get to reread and enjoy all over again someday. Sarah played a set of 3 chords. The purring of the piano stopped. Nothing happened, Charlie said with confusion. Shh, wait, listen. Do you hear that? Sarah questioned in a whisper. Charlie listened to the emptiness of the room. No longer did the pianos ring in a chorus of moans and purrs. I don't hear anything, Sarah. Exactly! They've all gone silent. What's wrong, my darlings? Sarah stood up and ran her hand along the fall boards of the pianos that encircled them to no response. It's like they're frozen in time, Charlie uneasily observed. Not everything's frozen, Charlie. Look. Sarah pointed at the sheet music in front of them. The sheets began to warp and shift from notes on a staff to ruled pages full of words. Sarah, I can't believe it. I think you cracked the musical cryptogram. What was that chord? We need to record it in the book. Can you play the sequence again? Sarah played the same 3 chords again, and they watched together as the notes formed a cipher that allowed Charlie and Sarah to decode every combination of chords and how they affected the world around them. There were chords that stopped time, chords that opened impossible doors that allowed you to step through in one place and exit out another miles away. Chords that could make you forget, chords that could help you remember. There were chords that built invisible walls that could hold back an army, and chords that, wow. There were combinations of chords for nearly everything you could imagine. This was the moment that Invisible Persuasions was penned and completed. Not by one author, but by 2. Charlie Safaric and Sarah Swathi. It was the first book in the history of the Athenians that held more than one author. As a result, no one could figure out which Athanasian's Athenaeum it would call home. Well, all Athenaeums birthed their own version of an original text once it's been submitted into its network. Invisible Persuasions never found its way onto the shelf in anyone's library. I caught Sarah gazing at the wall, motionless with a smile on her face. Then she was overcome with incredible sadness. Sarah? Sarah! Sarah, get us out of this! She snapped herself out of the memory, completely ignoring my tale of the Hazelton and it being impervious to the basement water torture cell. We found ourselves safely back inside Sarah's music room. Sorry, George. I haven't seen these chords in a long time. I've forgotten how powerful some of them can be. Has Charlie seen the book yet? She shot off at me without another hesitation. I didn't think you'd want him to. Besides, he didn't seem interested when he walked in on me scanning the pages. He seemed to think the pages were blank. That's a good sign. I'm not sure you could recognize it, even if he was ready to. Sarah, may I ask you something? You just did. Do you still love Uncle Charlie? I could feel that. George, those feelings seem so academic now, I admit. We've both spent a lot of time making sure we weren't reminded of that past. Why remind ourselves of something that we couldn't make work? Charlie has forgotten much more than I. Each one of those memories he put into a rock, and most of those have faded to stone. You do, though. I can feel it. I think I was just inside your head. What about Bachlan? Sharon? I'm sorry. I'm not sure what name to call them. Dating is strange. Dates have always seemed a bit artificial to me. You're essentially presenting yourself in a way that's not to disgust the other conscious being that you're courting the company of. I care about Sharon. I do. Charlie was different. So why don't you use one of those cords to bring back his memory? That's not my decision. That's his. He chose this path, and without it, I fear that we both might be in danger, not be long in this world. If Scrudius and Absinthe learn about this book, we're all in trouble. They've already worked out a piece of what Charlie and I discovered, but it's imperative that they never get access to the rest. Do you understand? Yeah, yes, but if it's so dangerous, why is it here now? Why don't you destroy the book? No book that we create can ever be destroyed. Banning knowledge is dangerous, but having that knowledge also seems dangerous. Haven't you essentially done that with this book anyway? I mean, haven't you already banished it? Not exactly. You can't ban something from a library that has never been indexed into it to begin with. Guard the book with your life. Learn from it discreetly, but not at home. Don't meddle with the sections you're not ready for. You have an advantage. You aren't affected like the rest of us. It's one of the reasons we brought you into Charlie's care. My dearest George, you might very well be the very piece that Harold prophesied. I have so many more questions. They'll have to wait till the next lesson. For now, I need you to go be with Charlie. Keep him safe. And don't ever let that book out of your possession. Do you understand? Yes, Sarah. I'll do my very best. Once the door shut, Sarah turned towards the rubber plant that was standing in the corner by the door. Sharon, I trusted you to make sure that book would never be found by anyone. The leaves trembled until they shifted into arms, hands, and legs. Sharon's head appeared at the top. They had been observing, in one of their many forms. Sarah, I know you've never stopped feeling for Charlie, even after the two of you went through the process. Sharon, I love you, but you don't get to decide what I feel or don't feel. That was my decision. Charlie and I chose this, and you very well know why it's so important for both of us. There weren't any other choices. It's okay. I've always known. Even when you chose to forget some of those pieces, you can't escape the way you feel. It's always going to be there. You can't destroy it completely. Even Charlie, who played himself into a self-induced amnesia, still looks at you like he did that first time. That feeling will always be there between the two of you. I accepted that a long time ago. And George is here to help save Charlie, and he can't do that unless we let Charlie feel again. But what if Harold's wrong about George, Sharon? What if Cordeva's right? It's only a matter of time, and maybe you'll find a place in that new life. I'll survive. I'll love you from a distance. I'll always watch out for you. I'll always love you. I always have, and in time, we'll all be together for eternity. So why not enjoy what you have until that number comes up? It's been a privilege to love you and be in your company. But I exist to shepherd the dead, and it's almost time for me to be a shepherd again. That's not something you're ever going to be able to forgive me for, and I've seen it. It's already been written, and we can't stop it. That's why I gave George the book, because with him, there's a small chance that he can transform, and you and Charlie can safely take return of the stones that remain. That concludes episode 18 of How to Kill a Piano. I'm George Tate. Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already gone to howtokillpiano.com, please do go check out our merch store. And we're doing a giveaway, by the way. So if you want to win a really cool mug, head over to our Instagram. Go to Think George Tate. That's my handle on Instagram. And look for the post. The post basically says you need to like the post, follow me on Instagram, tag 3 friends. The more friends you tag, the more entries you have to win. And it's only Monday, and we're going to announce the winner next Monday, and I'm going to send that mug out anywhere in the world to whoever is the lucky one to get it. And of course, if you don't want to run the contest and you need to have a mug, you can of course get one at howtokillapiano.com and drink some bomb-ass tea. Oh, and check out the pillows, because the pillow is really, really cool too. It has nooses on one side, and of course the iconic How to Kill a Piano graphic on the other. As always, the music was played live to tape by yours truly on the Yamaha electric piano. It was improvised rather than planned, but that's the way we do it, week to week, Monday to Monday, month to month, or whenever these things come out, which is usually on a Monday. If you haven't told your friends about How to Kill a Piano, please go do so. If you have, please remind them that we exist. There are a lot of episodes to catch up on. Since this is episode 18, we've been doing this since February. As always, thank you very much, and please enjoy yourselves. If you can't enjoy yourself, enjoy someone else, but make sure you get their consent. I'm George Tate. I'll see you the next Monday.